Let's go.
You are incredible. Your body has a purpose. Your life has a purpose. You were designed to live the best life possible.
What's going on, my beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode. You are tuned in to Listen, You're Not Defeated. And I'm your host, David Hernandez, and I am in Texas, in my childhood home where I was born and raised, and where a lot of what I'm talking about was actually inspired. So today is a different type of episode. You know, one of the things that I love about what I do as a coach and mentor is helping people. But really, it's about supporting them through their health and fitness journey. Because the reality is, I can't coach everyone, right? I'm limited. I can only do so much. But what I love to still do is find ways that I can support and bring value to you, the audience. So I've decided every Tuesday to do a Facebook Live where it's for you. It's a platform to support you, the audience, where you can bring your questions about emotional eating, stress eating, binge eating, right? And all things health and wellness. And then this platform, it's for us to have a conversation. You can jump in as a guest, you can just send in your questions, but it's really to bring hope and to show you and give instructions, the things that I know that can help you live your best life possible. So today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you that live, okay? So you can connect, you can tune in, you can get to know exactly what it is. And if you'd like to know more about it, you can also ask me questions in the comment section, or you can even just connect with me on social, which I'll give you all that information at the end of today's episode so that you can connect and join in to the Facebook Lives every Tuesday. So if you haven't already subscribed, I want to encourage you to subscribe. Click the notifications, click the little bell to get all up and coming notifications of all our new episodes. And if you're watching or listening to this on your favorite podcast station, click the follow button so that you can get all the notifications. So get ready. I'm excited for you to listen to this conversation. I have a really amazing friend of mine who's a student and client of mine. Allison Oswald is with us once again, and she'll be joining me every Tuesday in our Facebook Live having amazing conversations. So I hope you enjoy today's episode. So let's go. Mic check. Mic sound okay? Camera 1 good? Camera 2 good? All right, here we go. And as we start diving into our episode for today, it's really about sharing how this came about, right? And why we're doing this, and kind of the behind the scenes of how this weekly Tuesday was decided upon. People are commenting. Lisa from, is that man, I'm terrible with geography. PA, that's Pennsylvania, right? Pennsylvania. Okay. Welcome, Lisa. Cynthia, you are watching. She's out of Florida. Fantastic. I am also out of Florida. Right now I'm in Texas though. But as before we jump in, like I'm saying, it really was with the concept of supporting the community. Mm-hmm. I remember you're a student of mine, right? Your client. Yeah. We coached together yes. in this journey. And welcome, Ethan. You are a legend, man, from Idaho. How's it going, brother? Thanks for tuning in. So talking about this, I remember on one of our sessions, I was just kind of opening my heart to you about kind of my vision of really impacting more people, right? And really about my heart, what that's like, and why I want to impact and support people in this specific area, right? In terms of health and emotional eating and eating habits and mastering eating habits and developing a healthy relationship with food. Because many of you all might even know, as you all follow me, I lost my childhood best friend at the age of 21 to obesity, right? Yeah. Like I remember growing up and just watching him struggle with his relationship with food, with his eating habits, right? With his choices, and how he just struggled through this whole journey of trying to figure it out, Because I think when we're in this place of struggle, we're always looking to try to figure it out. And in his life, it was that frustration of not being able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, we, after high school, we parted ways. He stayed here in Texas. I moved to Florida. And at the age of 21, I got a phone call that he had died. Right.
Yeah.
He had got so desperate to get the weight off that he went and get a gastric bypass surgery. 2 days later, got an infection and he died.
It's terrible.
And that has been what I carry in my heart, right? In the commitment that I made out of that tragedy. I said, as long as I know of somebody that I can impact and help them avoid going through what my best friend went through, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And that's how we're here, right? That's why we're here.
Right.
This is how we connected, right?
That's right.
Helping you through your journey, which we're gonna jump in a little bit more into this episode. But really, I just want to share this foundation piece to really know that these Tuesday Lives is created to support you.
Yeah.
It's created to help you, the community. It's created to help you that has questions. It's created to help you that is frustrated, looking for answers as to why you can't achieve certain goals, certain things that you're striving for in and around health, in and around emotional eating, in and around being overweight, in and around achieving the life that you desire, right? And so I remember in that conversation, you graciously said, well, how can I be a part of this?
Yeah.
And when you said that, it was such a touching thing that impacted me, because it was like, not only has your life changed through our coaching and mentorship, right? But you said, I want to give back. And we're doing it now. Right.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely.
why every Tuesday now, moving on from here for as long as we can do it, right? We want to come live. Allison and I, and for those that don't know, this is Allison Oswald. She is out of Illinois. She'll kind of share with you a little bit about her backstory here in a little bit. But as people are signing in, we'll wait about one more minute and then we'll jump on in. Thanks for all those that have dropped in the comments. If you are just tuning in to our Tuesday weekly live, drop in the comment section where you're watching from, give a little shout out, and that way we know that you are connected. And through this live, if you have any questions, right, related to what we're talking about, or just related to health, or related to anything that you might be struggling in terms of achieving your health and fitness goals, please just drop it in the comments there. And I want to get those answered for you. Cool. Allison, well, why don't you share a little bit about yourself? Like, how did we connect? What brought you to decide that, like, hey, I want to be a part of these weeklies? Because I was really only thinking about doing it myself, right? But as you started to share a little bit about your heart and what all you've been able to accomplish, I thought it would be a fantastic idea for us to jump on this together.
Yeah, I agree, David. So I'm Allison, and I'm in kind of the Chicagoland, suburbs of Chicago land area. And what brought me to you was I was once again trying a program that I saw online, and was looking to try to lose some weight, get a little bit healthier, get control of what I have in the past few years noticed is like an inability to control my relationship with food. So overeating, binge eating, eating a lot of sugar, those type of things, not being able to stop, and never being able to maintain any change or loss, whether that be loss of bad habits with eating, weight, any of that, never being able to maintain any of that. And so I was trying another program that I had signed up for, and there was a support group kind of like this. And I was on the Facebook scrolling down, on the page, and I saw someone had posted your name as a coach and just given like a little blurb about how much you had helped them. And I thought something in my mind was like, but I'm already doing this one thing. What am I going to go look for another thing? But something kind of encouraged me to do it. And when I did, then I read more and more about what it is that you do, what you're working on. And I kind of saw about the quadrant, which focuses on, the behaviors that you're doing that you want to try to change.
Yeah.
And so that kind of brought me to it. And where I was in my life, I'm 41. And so I'm not a super, super young person, so I have some years behind me. But I can say I've tried a lot of things. And so it's been, a good 20 years now that in one way, shape, or form, I've been dealing with what I now understand was emotional eating and inability to have other ways to cope with really intense, strong feelings and things that I was struggling with in my life separate, from this emotional eating. That is what I was trying to use to cope, to comfort, that kind of paired with some behaviors that I had learned just growing up, from my dad, from my mom, and their relationship with food. And so kind of all those things had come together to put me in a place last fall where I really had kind of felt like I had lost all hope. Like I had really figured I'm never going to be able to do this. I've tried so many things. And even though I was successful with the things in the moment, I could never maintain them. Even the ones that were not quick fixes, that were supposed to be like lifestyle changes and maybe did deal a little bit with some of the psychological, behavioral, trigger type of things. They just brought in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what brought me to you. And you were so kind as to, have a meeting with me so that I could ask you questions and you could find out more about me and tell me more about your program and see, what would be, this would be a good fit, what you might be able to help me with. And as soon as I talked with you and got some of that information, I just kind of knew that was the missing piece for me. Yeah. I just kind of felt that. And I felt this sense of like, this person as a coach is going to give me information, but he's also going to help me walk through it. Because I haven't been able to do it on my own.
Right.
And that's why I keep failing. And with every failure, I would get more and more upset, more and more devastated by this. And then I would also get more and more unhealthy. I'd either gain weight, gain it back, gain more, and it would kind of push into some of my anxiety that, I struggle with here and there in my life. And, with the sometimes anxiety comes a little bit of depression and vice versa and all that complex stuff.
Yeah. And I remember us having the conversation because a lot of times we look at and we say, well, yeah, I've been through a lot of stuff. I've heard a lot of this similar thing. I've been through therapy, right? I've gone to see a counselor. I've seen a doctor. I've seen all of these things. But Lisa's saying she can totally relate to what you just explained there, Allison.
Yeah.
And you said something, and as I'm saying this, I get goosebumps in my whole body because you were going to therapy for what? I think it was like 6 months to a year or so, something like that. Or no, I think
even more
it was
than
longer,
that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said something so powerful. You said, even though I was going to therapy, they never touched on emotional eating, even though I was expressing that this was an issue of mine. This is what I was struggling with, right? And that really just, I mean, as a coach and mentor who does this, right?
Yeah.
Who understands like the principles and the roots of why people are stuck in certain behaviors or certain things, it was just shocking to me that this isn't being taught in that particular level, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience in that realm?
Yeah. So, in my 20s, I kind of had graduated from graduate school. I had a really good job. I was very, kind of previously in high school and whatnot, like a go-getter and pretty successful, got good grades and stuff. And so I got into my 20s and I got this job and it was kind of like, what's my value?
Yeah.
I didn't really have anything. I didn't have grades. I didn't have, what was the next step? What was I going to do? And so I found myself struggling with kind of my view of self and the way I would talk to myself and my worth, and was I really good at this? Was I really worthy? Because I didn't have anything to base that off of anymore. Instead of looking inward and thinking I'm a good person and I do this, things I now understand, I was struggling with that. And so I got to a place where that anxiety was kind of feeding into depression and back and forth. And I was really struggling. And so I did start seeing, a psychologist and working on some of this cognitive behavioral type of therapy. So thinking about what we're thinking about, how we're talking to ourselves and looking at that, and where do we fall in as human beings into these traps. Yeah. And so I did that for a good 5 years. I would have a break here and there and I would go back. And although I learned some extremely valuable information about myself, about how I talk to myself, how I view others' view of myself, those type of things, not once, maybe once when they said, how do you cope with big feelings? And I would say, well, I go eat a candy bar or 5. Then it was kind of like, oh, well, that's not good. However, it never dealt with it. And I think that's because it's still stigmatized as like, oh, that's just something women do. Oof. They just overeat. So that's a whole nother thing we could talk about, right? And that's how I kind of was stuck. And I think maybe my therapist was as well. It was like, oh, okay, well, that's just kind of part of it. But it never addressed it. And so even though I was aware then of the emotional eating and that it was actually happening, and even though for 15, 18 more years, I continued to be aware of it, I could never stop and get out of it. Or I would do it for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. And then it would creep back in. And then so would the feelings of guilt and shame and just like so frustrated, like, why can't I stop doing this? Yeah. And it was never addressed in that other arena, which you think, okay, that would be the area that maybe you would be able to get a little more like behavioral, psychological, neurological. And it wasn't.
You would think, because anything that we utilize to cope with our emotions that is destructive or unhealthy is not good for us.
Right.
It doesn't give us freedom. It doesn't give us release. It doesn't give us what we need. All it is basically masking it, right? It's a temporary fix that is, quote unquote, making us think like we're feeling okay. Why? And why do we go to food? Because it makes us feel good. Let's just be honest. Right. And the reason it makes us feel good is because it impacts our reward response area in the brain, which is the dopamine, right? We get a hit of dopamine. What does it do? Makes us feel good, which is why we resort to unhealthy foods, right? We never binge on like carrots, right? We never binge and say, oh my gosh, I got a craving. Let's go grab a head of broccoli, right? And eat it. Because it doesn't do the same to us. It doesn't bring that joy. It doesn't bring that quote unquote comfort or that good feeling within our body, right? Which is why we're drawn to chocolate. We're drawn to the sweets. We're drawn to processed foods, right? The chips, the popcorn, candy, things that literally become sugar in our bloodstream, which then spike our dopamine level, right? Which then make us feel good. We get this high, oh my gosh, this feels so good. It's masking this pain that we're feeling, right? This discomfort, this emotional state that we're in, whether it's sadness, whether it's depression, anger, rage, linked with disappointment and unsatisfaction and rejection, abandonment, all these things that we have experienced in our life makes us feel good. Yeah. And a lot of times we'll come back to one of the statements that you just said, because I thought it was powerful, but oftentimes I hear, and you can agree with me on this. We will say, I don't want to do it, but yet I can't stop doing it because sometimes it just feels good.
Yeah.
Right. Or not even does it feel good, I just can't take control of it because
Right.
I just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason we're doing that is because literally that's how our brain has now been rewired. Right.
Mm-hmm.
To when I am in an emotional state, boom, I do this behavior. I react in this form. I do these things to release what I am feeling. Because look, for all the audience members that are listening today, look, we all need a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
As humans, we need a coping mechanism to survive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would all be going zombie apocalypse on everyone and just
Right.
killing everybody, or like being excessively violent, which we
Yeah.
hear of cases, right?
Yeah.
Where people just can't find any more satisfaction, quote unquote, or release of what they're feeling, that then they end up going to extreme measures, right?
Yeah.
So as humans, we need a coping mechanism. But the thing is, what are we using as a coping mechanism?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If we are using something that was not intended to be used as that, it is always going to be destructive or unhealthy.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think a lot of this behavior, because let's kind of really quickly get to the definition of this, right? What is emotional eating? What is stress eating or overeating or binge eating? It's literally, I mean, in the simplest form, it's learned behavior. We learned at some point in our life that to release my emotions, the best way to do that, or at least one way to do that, was with food.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that pattern repeats, what happens? It starts to develop neurological traits. It starts to develop a strong neurological connection with the emotional feeling and food that are now linked. They've now created an agreement, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
A connection that now every time you are in an emotional state, automatically that nervous system or that neurological system is going to fire and say, oh, food, oh, food.
Yeah.
And as we've done it for so long, right, neuroplasticity will change the form of our brain, and therefore now it becomes automatic.
For sure. Yeah.
We have no more control of it.
Yeah.
It's literally to a state where it is now deciding for us. How many times have I heard stories of people that say they realize that they are eating halfway through the bag, right? Or they realize they are eating food like after they've already started the process of it. And that's because now it's just an automatic autopilot response,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in that, and I say all of this to kind of come back to your statement where you said that you never kind of thought it was something wrong or bad, or even through therapy, right? It was almost like it was missed. It wasn't identified. It wasn't looked at as a situation that we should emphasize or have attention to,
Right.
because, oh, women should just, this is what women do.
This is part of it. We're emotional. Yeah. We eat because it makes us feel better. We eat to like be together and laugh. Like it's just, you know, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with enjoying food.
Of course, absolutely.
But that's not what we're talking about.
That's right. We're talking about the deeper context of what that is, right? Of like really finding your quote unquote release of your emotions through this, trying to find a fix for what you're feeling or what you're going through, what you're dealing with, right? Which that is not a healthy way, because then it leads to so many other side effects, right?
Right.
Weight starts creeping up, right? We start getting in an unhealthy weight. We then don't start, we start changing the shape of how we look. Our self-esteem is impacted, right? Our self-confidence is impacted. Now our health is starting to be impacted. Our energy is impacted. Then now we start to get health problems, health complications, right? Then we open the door to potential diabetes. We open the door to potential blood pressure issues and high cholesterol issues, and then so on and so forth. And that is what I'm really getting to. Not so much of like, oh, we have a family gathering, let's have some food and have a
Right.
good time and chat about it,
No.
that's all
No.
great. And as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I encourage that, right?
Right.
That's a great way. But we're talking about the real stuff here,
Yeah.
right? The stuff that is hard to sometimes accept, hard to sometimes even recognize because we don't see it necessarily as a bad. Because why? You just said it. Sadly, society has linked women, right? And I don't mean to just talk about women, because it happens
No.
to men as well,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
But in your example, women are the emotional
Right.
person.
Right.
They're more
Yes.
emotional, so therefore them going to that is normal, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so much so that we now, as women, not we, but as
Yeah.
women, they
What I've
start
shared.
to
Yeah.
believe it,
Yeah.
and they
That it's
start to
just
say, yeah,
natural.
it's
Yeah.
natural, it's normal, so
Let's
therefore
laugh about it. We all
that's
can't
right.
control ourselves. Let's just stuff our faces. We'll start our diet again on Monday. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like you laugh about it. It's not funny though.
Yeah.
It
It's
wasn't
not at
funny to
all.
me anymore. Yeah. It's
Not
like
at all.
I realized, and
No.
then like you were saying, the things that are happening as a result of this, like the
Yeah.
guilt and the
That's right.
shame and the frustration of just being like, why can't I stop doing this?
That's right.
What is wrong with me?
That is a big
What
statement.
is wrong with me? And I'm not only not happy with the shape of my body and the way I look in my clothes, I don't feel good. I have difficulty focusing. I have low energy. I want to sleep all the time. But also mentally, what is going on? I'm a grown
right.
woman. Why can't I just
right.
stop doing this?
That's right.
That's a horrible feeling
It is.
every day.
It is. And it gets so toxic to the sense that you lose your self-worth, right? You lose
Yeah.
your value. You lose even certain dignities about yourself, right? There is self-judgment, self-condemnation. There is so much negative speaking, negative words that are spoken over yourself, right? Criticism and just self-rejection and self-judgment that impacts everything about us.
Yeah.
It then starts to bleed into our relationship, right? It starts to bleed into friends and family, right? It starts to bleed into our job space. It starts to bleed into the bedroom, right? For those that are married or have their significant other, it starts to bleed into so many things.
Yeah.
Which
And
is why this topic is so serious.
Right. I agree. And I didn't realize that at the time, when I finally accepted the fact that, like, okay, this is a problem and I'm not in control of it right now. I need help. Just like you would if you were suffering with alcohol and you were an alcoholic. This is a problem. I can't control it. More importantly, I want to. I don't want this happening anymore. I don't like it. I don't want to feel like this. And I don't want to, for the rest of my life, be doing this anymore.
That's right. That's right.
I need help.
And I think getting to that place is so critical, right? That one, like you just said, we've got to accept it. We've got to recognize, hey, you know what? I struggle with this.
Yeah.
And look, if this is you, for those that are watching, right? Thank you for all those that are commenting. If this is you, like, there's no shame in that. There's no judgment in that, right? And it's not and us talking about this isn't to bring shame on you or to make you feel bad. That isn't the purpose of why we're doing this, right? And that's not the purpose of today's episode. It's really about bringing hope to you, bringing understanding that we can change this. You can change this behavior. Why? Because all it is, in its simplest form, is learned behavior. Therefore, if you learned it, you can unlearn it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I understand it can make you feel shameful, right? But it's also about saying, okay, yeah, I'm ashamed of it. I might be embarrassed about it. I don't like it. I recognize I have a struggle. I recognize I am battling with this. Now the point is, let's do something about it, right? Like
Yeah.
the acceptance and the recognizing isn't you accepting that now this is going to be you for the rest of your life, right? This is now opening the door to a possibility of saying, yes, I do have this. However, I'm not going to stay here. Yes, I am struggling with this. However, I'm not going to live in this life any longer. Yes, I am in this state of being, but I am willing to do what it takes to change it, right? To put forth the effort to understand, to learn what are the components, what are the things that I need to start focusing on to be able to change. And that is the purpose and the reason for why we are here.
For sure.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So what sparked? What was that spark for you that said, you know what? Because when we spoke, you were in this place.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. It's impacting my relationship with my husband. It's impacting relationships with my family. It's impacting the way I view myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that spark that said, you know what? Now I got to do something about it.
I think, thinking back, I think, like I said, it was last fall, and I had noticed that I was just kind of in this place where I was always angry. I was always angry. I was angry with my kids, and not just because they're kids and because I'm a mom, and that's really normal. But it was like I was just always angry with my kids. Why wouldn't they listen to me? What was wrong with me? Why couldn't I get them to listen to me? I was angry at my mom. I was angry at my brother, in those type of relationships. I was angry at myself, just angry. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And so I think that was part of it. Was I was just fed up with that. I was fed up with feeling like that, disappointed, frustrated, angry. And I knew it was in some way related to this. Because when I was angry, this is what I would do. But guess what? It never made me feel better. Maybe for the split second when I was doing it, but then pretty quickly, it made me feel worse. So it's like I knew what I was even trying to do to cope with these feelings and these problems wasn't even working anyway. And it was destructive.
Yeah.
And then I also started thinking about my dad. I lost my dad about 6 years ago. And growing up, he spent his whole life with a terrible relationship with food, always overeating, always trying to lose weight, always losing 100 pounds on a shake diet, gaining it all back, being sick, put himself into type 2 diabetes. Even then, didn't really control it for most of my life. Destroyed his kidneys, destroyed his heart, and just pretty much dropped dead. I mean, he was on dialysis already, but he wasn't dying, and just dropped dead. And they just said probably had a massive heart attack, or his diabetes, his blood sugars, his kidneys. His body just couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
So I mean, six years ago, you figure I was like only 35 years old.
Yeah.
My dad was only 65. And I saw myself, even though I don't have diabetes, and even though I'm not to that degree that my dad was, I saw myself. I felt like I was starting to follow in some of those footsteps and have this just nasty, uncontrollable relationship with food where, oh, this is bad and I shouldn't be doing this. But I want it, but I can't control myself, which are some things that I learned from my mom.
Yeah.
And I just saw this, and I saw this, how it was feeding into this anger, and with myself, which, like you were saying, was bleeding into all other areas of my life. And I said, I can't do this anymore, and I need help. And I didn't want that for myself or for my family or for my relationships or for my future.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. And that's why it really all comes back to understanding, right? Like, where does this come from? Because when we look at, like, Cynthia commented and she said, they don't know how to deal with it. The how is crucial, right? Of knowing how to deal with my emotions in a healthy way, or how to stop doing a certain behavior, right? Or how to take control of what seems right now to be out of control.
Right.
And so let's take a moment to discuss this, and you can even share a little bit about like work that we did and how you went about what we taught and talked about. It's the one thing we really need to focus on here is identifying, well, how and when did this start? When can I put a point on remembering when I started to go to food to release my emotions, right? When can I remember a circumstance, a situation, right? Something that happened to me that caused me to be in an emotional state, whether that's sadness, anger, rage, right? Frustration of some sort, right? That just causes you to be in an emotional place in your life. What happened? Why is this so important? Because we're going to start to understand ourselves. The first step to being able to start to take control, right, of our eating habits, or of putting an end to this behavior pattern, is by having awareness of ourself.
Yeah.
Who am I? How has my childhood been? How have I been raised? What were events and circumstances that I can pinpoint and trigger and look at? Oh, this I can remember. And I always use this example, right? Let's just say young Allison comes home from school. She got in a bad fight with her best friend, right? Mom's there. She comforts her. She loves her, gives her a kiss, and then brings her a cookie and says, "Here, have this cookie. You're going to feel better."
Yeah.
That is the instance, the beginning stages of how we are starting to learn to use food as a finding, or as a source to find joy, to find happiness, to be able to get over being mad at my best friend, or being upset, right? So we've got to know about ourselves. And this is where we start to deep dive into understanding, like, what is the root cause of all of this? Where does this stem from? Right? When can I remember me starting to do this? And for those that are watching, if this is making sense, drop in the comment section right now. You can drop in there making sense, or if you even can remember a specific event, like, please feel free to share that as well. It is crucial. I remember when we first started, like, we spent a lot of time going deep on this topic.
Yeah.
What was your findings on this, of like actually going in to identify these root cause, right? Or these initial circumstances that caused you to start leaning on food? Like, what was your experience going through some of that work?
Yeah. Well, at first, when we first started talking about it, I did automatically say, like, okay, it's just always kind of been part of the way I've been exposed to food, which I do think is true. And it is true. Food was really important. Everything was always focused around food. When are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? But to the point where it was like, shouldn't we focus on like being together on this trip? Or, but it was just, it was that important to my dad, because it was something that he used to bring him comfort. And then for a while, I noticed that it was also used to distract us, from when we were experiencing financial hardships growing up, or if my parents were fighting, you know what I mean? My brother and I would kind of be like, oh, let's, take this food to our room and go talk, with each other and do these kind of things. Yeah. So I do remember those instances, and those played played a part in that. And so I do think that I did engage in some of these emotional eating coping mechanism types of behaviors growing up. But for me, and this took a while for us to chip away at, and that's the thing. It's like I thought I was so self-aware of why I was emotionally eating. I thought I was so aware. It was because I was learned. It was a learned behavior, and it was. But what it came down to, it was a lot to do with control, And so I, throughout my life, have been a very outgoing person, a positive person, a successful person. But when I was growing up, I would also have a lot of struggles with challenging my parents and talking back and, things that are not unusual for kids. But in one way, shape, or form, my parents kind of didn't know how to handle that. And so the way we would handle it is they would tell me, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you talking back to us? You would never do this to your teachers at school. You're very disrespectful. And so what had started to happen, I now understand and realize, is I had these two different selves.
Yeah.
And my one self would always be like, why can't you control this other? Why you keep doing that? Because then I would feel guilty.
Yeah.
I would feel guilty for fighting with my parents. I would feel guilty for being mean to my brother. I would feel, and some of these feelings are normal and these things are normal, but it was a lot more. And it was so much of my life that I realized in my 20s when I was going through these anxiety and depression and this really difficult time. I realized that I decided if I could control what I put in my mouth, even though it was in a way that was not under control.
That's right.
I could control it.
Yes.
And so then it became, oh, well, I am in control of both these sides. It became also a distraction. I used it, I recall I wouldn't want to go to work because I didn't think maybe I wasn't really doing a great job at work, even though there was no real evidence of that. So I would call in sick. And you know what I would do? I would stuff my face because I was in control of that, because I felt so ashamed about not being in control of my depression and anxiety or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was the root cause, was not just, oh, I kind of don't like the way I act about certain things. It wasn't just like a poor self-esteem. It wasn't that. Because I'm a fairly confident person. Yeah. It was inside. Why, my critical self always contending, with myself. Yeah. So.
And you said even I would use it to distract myself. And when we go back, what would your dad do? He would utilize food to distract, right? Totally. So the reason we want to start identifying these root causes, like where does this stem from, is because it's going to help us see a pattern play out. Who did I learn it from? How did I learn it, right? How was this taught to me? How did I observe this, right? Because growing up, we utilize different learning methods, right? And one of those is observational learning. So we're constantly, and still today as adults, how many times have we go on social media, right? We go on Instagram, right? We see a workout, we're observing it, and we say, oh yeah, okay, I got it. And then you go and try it, and then you fall on your face, you get hurt, right? And so it's still active in our life, but we utilize it even more so when we're young. And when we can start to identify and pinpoint, oh, this is where this pattern, oh, it was from, I remember I see my dad do that. Oh, crap. Yeah. Yes. What does this start to do? It starts to open share. I don't want to be the one.
I was just going to say, like, because I'm so passionate about this, like, it starts to open our eyes to what's going on in a more objective way, rather than this just subjective, I'm out of control, I'm bad, why can't I control myself? It also lifts a little bit of this weight off your shoulders because you're like, oh, well, okay, not all of this was just me choosing to do things.
Thank you. Yes.
Some of it was truly taught, observed, but also this is a behavior.
Yes.
And once I can identify what these deep causes are, and I can find out what my triggers are, then I can see, like, it kind of is like spelled out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I can control it because I can cut it apart and deal with this instead of it being this horrible weight on top of it,
Yes.
you know?
That's
And so
right.
even though I was still doing it as maybe emotionally eating here and there and binging on sugar, like, yeah, I'm a human being. Like, it's not just going to change overnight, but I
Right.
understood what was happening.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. And then I could actually work on it.
Thank you. Now it gives you hope, right? It gives you a sense of empowerment.
Yeah.
You get empowered to know, oh crap. And I even like to emphasize it in this sense. For many, I've heard it stated in this way. Now I know that it's not that there's something wrong with me.
Yes. Yes. It's not about me being bad, being out of
Right.
control, being weak,
Right. That's
being
right.
weak,
Yes.
you know, being a failure.
That's right.
And that in itself just lifts you up and makes you feel like, yeah, this is hard. Yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it just gives you this like sense of like, okay, there's hope to this.
Yes. That's
This
right.
can change no
It
matter
can,
if I'm
that's
40,
it.
no matter I'm 20.
Right.
I got to do some work.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get some help.
Yeah.
But this can be different.
It can. It can.
Yeah.
This identifying piece is so critical, right? And I even posted about it today on social media. I was talking about like how to identify it, right? And it's important to be able to recognize. And sometimes when I explain, I get so I elaborate on it so much, and I make it so simple that it was funny today. Somebody commented, "I don't mean to offend you, but you gave." He said, right? It was a 5-second response. You made it into an hour. It was only a minute, right?
Right.
But what they don't understand is that it's important to break it down so that you can actually have it click here of saying, oh, yes, now I can recognize, now I can identify that, yes, I am in this place. I do struggle with this, right? And that is why we focus on identifying, like, where does this come from? Where does it stem from? Because that is now going to give us insight as to what the heck has been happening, what's been going on. This, why can't I stop, right? Why am I doing it, right? Why is this happening? And I don't even know what's happening. Well, this now starts to give us insight to that, which is the beginning of being able to disconnect and to just deliver us and free us from this behavior pattern, right?
Yeah.
And then we go on to then identifying triggers, right? You briefly talked about it in your conversation right now. Once we identify, okay, where is this? When can I remember event? And it's going to stem from our childhood at some point.
Right.
And let's say it doesn't stem from your childhood, it still stems from a younger self. Even if it
Yes.
was 2 years ago, a year ago, even if it just started a month ago, right? It's from a younger self. So when we identify that, now we then need to look at, well, what are my triggers, right? What triggers me to this behavior? Why are triggers so important? Again, it's about identifying, it's about awareness, it's about recognizing ourselves and knowing what makes me tick as a person. And why is this so critical? Because it's going to speak to our nature of how we've been sort of in a say conditioned or shaped, or how we've been quote unquote developed. Right? Because that trigger is what's literally activating the behavior.
Right.
It's triggering you to do this. And when we identify what those triggers are, we've identified now the root of it. When did it start? How did it happen? Right? Where does this stem from? We now look at, well, what are some of those triggers? Being very specific, right? Remember in our sessions, it was like, okay, let's get more specific, more specific. The specificity of understanding what our triggers are gives us insight again to how we are as humans and what makes us fall into these traps.
Right.
Right? How was your experience in that?
Well, it was interesting because I thought I just knew, like, okay, well, when I get angry, when I get frustrated, and I would just keep saying that. Well, when I get angry, well, what makes you angry? Well, my kids make me angry,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
my brother makes me angry. Okay, what
yeah,
makes me angry? When he doesn't return, and it was just like you just think you think you know it, and you do, but then when it really came down to, like, for my kids, for example, that's a big trigger for me. It's a big, I love my kids and they're wonderful and I have lots of happy moments with them. But as a lot of, parents can attest to, being a parent is hard. And your kids are human beings, and they're not listening, or they keep doing something, they don't listen to your instructions, or they're fighting with each other or whatever. And you
yeah,
ask them to stop and they don't stop. And so I would get, like, really frustrated. But when I really break down what I'm really frustrated is, because what I'm feeling in that moment is, if I were a better mom, they would be listening to me. That's what I'm telling myself in that moment.
yeah,
That's the deeper trigger. Because when my kids don't listen, or when my kids fight, it's a reflection on me. That's what it was telling myself
yeah,
in my head.
yeah,
And so those deeper connections about what those triggers are, catching myself, not just being, I'm angry, but what's happening here.
that's right.
My kids are fighting. I'm starting to get frustrated because I feel like this is a reflection of me. Or if my kids respected me, if I taught my kids the right way to respect me, if I was
Yeah,
a good enough mom, they would respect me and they would listen to me. But when you say it out loud, it's like, well, no, they're kids, this happens. But that's not what's going on in that moment when I'm
that's right.
feeling whatever that intense emotion triggers.
Yeah, yeah.
That was huge for
Because
me.
because it also starts to look at, well, what are you believing about yourself, right?
Yes.
Because when we're looking about a trigger, it's really linked to our belief. Something triggers me. Well, it's something about that I'm believing of what you said either is hurting me or I don't like it. It's making me feel uncomfortable. It's making me feel ugly, right? Like, for example, a trigger word for me is skinny. My
Mm-hmm.
whole life I was skinny. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like what it projected. I didn't like the comments from others. I didn't like being bullied by it. I didn't like others laughing at it about me. I didn't like them automatically determining my value and my worth based on how I looked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, that belief of that word making me feel defeated, making me feel less than, right, is linked to what I was literally in essence believing,
Yeah.
right? Or believing about what was being said. And so these triggers really now start to look at, well, why does this make me tick? It's not so much also what makes me tick, but it's why does it make me tick? Why does this trigger me, right? You, my kids, oh, they make me angry. Why do they make you angry? What is it about what they just did that makes you angry? Oh, it makes me feel unvalued, disrespected, right? Like I'm not even present, like I don't exist, I'm not even seen, right? Oh, so that's what really is happening here. It's not that they're making you angry, it's that you are feeling disrespected, unseen, unworthy, and they're not valuing me as a mom. Boom. There is your trigger, right?
Yeah.
There is what you now start to understand about the essence of the things that also have meaning for you,
Yeah.
but that we have also at some point believed that we do not like about ourselves or don't like to be in experience with because it makes us feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's really important to look at, well, what makes me tick, what triggers me, but why is it triggering me? That is really an important step. If we simply try and get it logically, of like understanding, oh, okay, yeah, I know this. I know, like, I have conversations with amazing, beautiful people that say, yeah, I know what my triggers are. Cool. But like, we got to go deeper. It's not
Yeah.
just enough to know it here, right? We've got to be able to identify why does that, because the why lives here.
Yeah. That's right.
The why lives within us, right? Why is skinny such a triggering word for me? Why? Because it makes me feel, right, as if I am not good enough, as if I am not worthy of, that I have to constantly prove myself, right? That I am being judged and valued by something that absolutely doesn't reflect who I really am within,
Yeah.
right? That's why it triggers me.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, I don't like the way the physicalities of it looks, right?
Right.
That's a superficial
Right.
component,
It's a
right?
different part, but still.
We've got to, but it still influences, but it's
It
really
is.
about identifying the within part, right?
Yeah.
So for all you that are listening, I really, as we kind of wrap, believe me, we're going to continue on this topic. We're going to come back next week on Tuesday, and please drop in the comments for all those that are watching if you want to, as you're viewing this and as you're listening to this, if questions come up and things you want answered, please, you can drop in the comment section or simply send me a private DM and we can get those answered for you. Look, it's important for me to get this out to you all so that we can really start taking control of this area, right? But for those that are tuning in, I really encourage you to start identifying, well, what are these root causes? When can I identify that my association of going to food when I am in an emotional state happened? And then I challenge you to be very, very specific, right? Be very detailed about it. What happened? What was the circumstance? What was the situation? Be actually specific. I remember, in an example, I remember I was with my best friend. We were arguing about who had the better dress, and she humiliated me. She said this, she said that. I then got home. That specific is how we want to look at this. Why? Because again, this is going to speak about what has a certain level of value and meaning to us, because in that, we're also going to be able to identify our trigger, right? Then let's identify the trigger, but not only understanding like what makes me trigger, right? Or what makes me tick, what triggers me to go to food, but why does that trigger you, right?
Yeah.
That why piece is really important because, as Allison said, it just brings insight in different levels to really know what it is about you that you like or don't like, what has meaning or not, or what you've been tying a certain belief to about yourself. Anything else you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, in the same regards, I said to you, I remember when we first started working together, I already know why I do this. I already know all this about myself. I was in therapy for 5 years. I'm 41 years old. I'm so self-aware. And I am. And I know these things. But I didn't understand I was here.
Yeah.
And in order to make the changes that I've made and maintain maintenance that I'm doing, I needed to go here.
That's right.
And I just I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't able to, I didn't know the questions to ask myself, to guide myself, because the answers are all in here.
That's it.
In here and here.
That's right.
But I needed guidance about how to get to that and work through that. And so I guess I just wanted to reiterate your point where you can think you know all this, but there's a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. What could you tell the audience, those that are tuned in and those that are watching, that still feel that even though we're sharing this and expressing that there is no shame, right? That there is no embarrassment in this, and that we're really sharing this to really inspire you, to lift you up and know that, yeah, I shouldn't feel ashamed. I shouldn't be embarrassed about this. What could you tell those that might be feeling that way right now? Because I know you experienced that, right?
Yeah.
And you felt that. What would you say to those?
I think two things. I think I would tell them, you're not alone. You're not alone. Even if you think you're alone, here's two people right here that just told you they felt like this before in their life. They feel like this every time now. You're not alone. And actually, in reality, I'm encountering, as I'm sharing my experience, so many people are dealing with this. It is unreal. It's unreal. But no one's actually figuring out how to get out of it and how to work through it. And so it's not a you problem. You're not the problem. This is just something that you've learned, through various variables that have kind of come together to cause this. And so it's nothing you did. And then second, like, you can get out of it. Like, yeah, it's not going to be a quick fix. And, everyone's like, that's the new phrase. It has to be a lifestyle change. It has to be a lifestyle change. Well, yeah, but you can't just change your entire lifestyle by doing something quick. So
that's right.
I guess that's my second thing. Like, but you can get out of this. You can change this. As someone who's been in it for many, many years in one way, shape, or form, like, you can climb out of that hole, and you keep slipping and you keep slipping and you keep slipping, and go back. You can get out of it. And I guess the other thing is, like, I wish that I would have given myself enough grace and enough worth to say, you deserve to try to help figure this out for yourself, that I would say to all my other friends and all my other family. But I wouldn't do it for myself.
Yeah.
To try to figure out how to get out of this and to try, to do something about it. You're worth it.
They are. And so are you. And you're not perfect, right? Like, do you still battle with some of those thoughts? Do you still battle with some of those things, right? It's not like they're going to magically go away.
No.
But what now changes is how they impact you, how they influence you, and if you choose to believe it or not, right? That is the thing, because it's a journey, it's a process. And look, for many of us, it can be our whole life that we'll have to battle with some of these thoughts, right? And shut them down and everything. And that's okay.
Right.
Look, I'm 36. I remember this happened when I was in middle school. And I still hear that word, and it's like everything inside of me just wants to crumble in a ball, and I want to beat the other person up. But like, it doesn't impact me, as it doesn't influence me or affect me like it once did. Right. So it's now about really learning how to deal with this in a healthy way and be stable in our emotions.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, we are coming to a close. We've been now an hour. It just flew by. Thank you for all those that have answered some questions. There are some personal questions here that I will be addressing through private message and DMing a few of you. So thank you for tuning in. Know that every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m., we are here for you. Know that you are incredible. You are worthy of all things, and you can achieve the life that you desire. And look, here is the space for you. Tune in every Tuesday. We want to impact you. We want to inspire you. We want to just bring hope and give you instructions and guidance on how to overcome certain challenges so that you can live your best life. Allison, as always, you're incredible. Thank you so much. See you next Tuesday.
All right. See you then.
All righty. Have a good night,
so much.
Everyone. Have a blessed night. Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
That's our episode for today, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed it, because again, the purpose of these Tuesday lives are to support you and to encourage you, right? Special thanks go out to Allison for joining me, and who will be continuing to join me every Tuesday on these lives. If you want more information on how you can tune in to our Facebook lives, look, all the information is there on the episode notes. Make sure and check it out. And before I close, I want to remind you, we are less than a month away from my 2-day conference, First Sleep to Better Health. What is that? It is a 2-day conference. I'm going to be live in Winter Haven, Florida, and it's also going to be a virtual online access for all you people that are out in another state, another country, so that you all can connect and tune in. The purpose of this event is really to teach you how to master your eating habits so that we can put an end to emotional eating, stress eating, boredom eating, binge eating, right? Any and all unhealthy eating habits. The emphasis of this conference is to help you take control of your eating habits. Take control of your emotions, acquire emotional stability, right? Because we're going to look at the foundational components of what is causing you to be in this place. When we're talking about having unhealthy eating habits, right? That is one of the leading causes of non-communicable diseases, right? Because that leads to overeating, which also impacts your weight. It impacts health-wise, conditionally, right? It brings on heart diseases, it brings on high blood pressure, cholesterol, it can cause obesity, and then from there, it can produce cancer and so many different non-communicable diseases. And look, quite frankly, this situation is what causes 11 million deaths each year. And I want to put an end to that. So if today you identify and look at, when I'm stressed, when I'm angry, when I'm dealing with emotions, I find myself going to food to release these emotions. If this is you, first and foremost, I want to just encourage you, right? We all have struggles. And if we identify that we do have this struggle, it doesn't mean that there's a problem with you or that you're weak or that there is something wrong biologically with you, right? Or that you are a, sometimes even in a weird sense of saying it, but like a deformed person or a person that doesn't have certain qualities or is less than somebody else. That's not the case. It just really means that you're struggling with this, that you have not learned a proper way to release your emotions in a healthy way. And I want to support you because emotional eating, stress eating, and boredom eating is basically learned behavior, which means that if you learned it, you can unlearn how to do that behavior. And I want to show you how. We're going to be focusing on the root causes that are keeping you stuck in this behavior pattern, in going to food, right? We're gonna also talk about how to identify the triggers and why those things trigger you to continue to repeat this behavior pattern. We're gonna also look at, what happens psychologically and physiologically in your body that is also the contributing factor that causes you to continue to repeat this behavior pattern. I'm gonna also show you a practical, simple strategy that you can implement immediately after this 2-day conference to start helping you put an end to emotional eating, stress eating, boredom eating once and for all, to put an end to it for good by mastering your eating habits and knowing how to cope with your emotions in a healthy way. First, Leap to Better Health is here for you. If you want more information or to register, click the link down below. You can find that in the notes description, right? But you can also find it there underneath here. You're gonna find the website, firstleaptobetterhealth.com. Click on it, go register. Get your seat. There are limited seats available, and I want you to be there so that I can support you and just help you put an end to this for good so that you can live the life that you deserve. Firstleaptobetterhealth.com. Go check it out, register, and I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Listen, You're Not Defeated, and I'm your host, David Hernandez. Remember, every week on Thursday, I am coming with a new episode, so stay tuned. If you haven't already subscribed, click the subscribe button. Also, click the little bell for notifications. And if you're hearing this through your favorite podcast station, click the follow button so that you can also get notifications of all our up and coming episodes. Once again, you are not defeated. Remember, you are incredible. Go out, crush it, and live your best life. My name is David Hernandez, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace. Did it look weird? It felt very weird. All right, that's our episode. Very creepy. Right. Oh, I want to kill you.